We go. Hello, welcome to our webinar live from Socrata headquarters in Seattle, Washington. My name is Alita Moore. I'm the content strategist here at Socrata. Our webinar today is called Open Data CX, Creating a Great Citizen Experience. We will be talking with Gail Roper, Chief Information Officer of Raleigh, North Carolina, about how to ensure citizens can find the information they need on a city's website. Our host today is Ian Kalin, Socrata Director of Open Data. He will be introducing Gail and getting the conversation started. A couple of notes before we begin. If you have any questions during the webinar, you can ask them via the chat box at the bottom of your screen. And after the webinar, you should be receiving an email with a survey. We would love your feedback on what we can do to make this more useful to you next time and what your biggest takeaways were today. Thank you for joining us. So without further ado, here's your host, Ian Kalin.
Thank you so much, Alita, and thank you everybody for joining. This is Creating a Great Citizen Experience. I am pleased to introduce Gail Roper. She has over 28 years of experience in the technology industry in the public and private sectors. As the first Chief Information and Community Relations Officer for Raleigh, North Carolina, a city that Forbes magazine ranked as America's most wired city in 2010. Gail strategically aligns technology solutions for one of the fastest growing cities in the nation. Ms. Roper focuses on the innovative applications of technology to enhance business objectives and service delivery for Raleigh communities. And prior to joining the city of Raleigh, Ms. Roper served as the CIO for the city of Austin, Texas, and the city of Kansas City, Missouri. So Gail, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Good afternoon.
Hello, hello. Oh yeah, afternoon. I must confess, I'm calling from the West Coast, trying to stay a bit warmer here in San Francisco, so I may get confused in the morning and afternoon. But we are very, very excited to talk about a citizen experience and how really Raleigh is a national leader in that regard. So as we get some framework as to what this means and what Raleigh has been doing, can I start with an opening question of who benefits from a government service like you're providing? What does it mean to have a transparent government?
So I think that the reality of the matter is that all citizens will benefit from the relationship with the government and better understanding how government works and also how government provides services. So when we look at our citizen population, we sometimes categorize it by individuals that are basic citizens that receive services from the city, and then also we have a population of individuals that actually transact business with the city. So
right.
We've got a large development group with the growth of the region. We have a large group of developers that interface with the city on a daily basis. So we look at the benefits to those individuals as they interface with the city as well. And then we have an emerging group of youth that are extremely technology literate because of the region that we live in. So we pay a good bit of attention to their education and the fact that they will be future taxpayers. We want to develop and establish a relationship with them now so that they understand that government is a place to come to as a resource.
Excellent. Yeah, it's really interesting to hear you describe how I think a lot of folks and it looks like we have a very diverse audience here participating in this webinar, but in my experience, generally speaking, people think of this as only a technology community way of engagement, but I think to your point, it's really all members of your community, all types of citizens from all different walks of life. Well, jumping in then to the right way to engage them, we're talking about a good citizen experience. What does that even mean? I mean, I think it seems like a play on the word user experience, which is very common in the technology community as well, but it sounds like you've redefined it. So what does it mean for Raleigh?
Well, we want to really elevate government as a go-to place for our citizens. So what we think about is much the same as we would think about interfacing with any company that's providing a service, that we could walk away and know that that company did due diligence in trying to provide a high level of service to us. So from our perspective, we want to first of all develop a good relationship with our citizens, so that they feel that they've gotten the attention that they need and the information that they need. One of the greatest assets of municipal government is the amount of information that we have.
Right.
And we can see from the rise in, over the last 10 years, in city websites. We probably can't find very many cities today that do not have web portals. And we see from that demand that there is a great demand for information. So the better we can provide that information, and the best that we can do for our citizens is to find all kinds of ways to provide that information to them, for them to self-service. So basically, if I want information in this world of consumerization, if I want information, it might be at 10 o'clock at night, it might be at 1 in the morning. But to have an ability for citizens to self-service and get information and the data and be able to utilize that data to answer their own questions benefits municipalities. So we really look at it as a way to both provide a self-service to our citizens, but also it's a productivity tool for us as well, so we don't have to have a human being at the end of every question or every request for information. So it benefits the taxpayers because we're not having to provide staffing at a level that we've had to in the past because of the technology.
Right. So to make sure that I caught those points, it sounds like, you know, the definition of citizen experience, a good citizen experience, is offering self-service options, identifying, it sounds like, some time-saving opportunities, and then it sounds like some just basically addressing those core problems. It's a way in which your government is doing the business of providing services to citizens. Is that a fair summary? Did I hear that right?
Yes, and having those multiple channels available to them as they request information, anytime, anywhere, any place.
Right.
So you could be at an airport and want information about a development in your neighborhood, and you could have access to that information at any time.
Excellent. So I'm sure this happened overnight, right? You came into into city government, and within 24 hours, with all your experience in other cities, you were able to wave the magic wand. No, there's no magic. Okay, so how did this come about?
That's really funny.
Well, yeah, I'm a little silly, and I may have spent some time in government myself, so I recognize that time moves differently in different sectors. So give me a sense of perspective. Is this months? Is this days? Is it years? How do you get this type of support to build this type of platform?
So we were able to get a portal up and live in about a year. So part of that was contingent upon our somewhat understanding the whole need to educate with really anything that we do. So you've got a political body that has to be educated. You have your own internal organizations who are the stewards of that data that have to be educated. So we sat down and kind of did a mind map session where we talked about what we would do first. And one of the things that we did, and I'm going to, in a second, I'm going to pull up a document that kind of walks through that timeline.
Oh, great!
But
great.
One of the things that we did to spark some conversation around open data was to develop an open data resolution. And all it said was that we were going to embark on and agree that our city would be a city that would be open in every way, from an open data perspective, as it related to open data, as it related to an open network in terms of our broadband initiatives, and as it related to our embarking on open source as tools for the organization. So we wanted to get that out first. And the benefits of having that kind of resolution, the primary benefit was that it caused some dialogue around, so what are you talking about? What is that?
Yeah.
How is it going to benefit the constituency? Our political body had an opportunity to understand that it wasn't a FOIA request, that it was different than having a reporter call and say we need to have information, that it was going to be this agreed upon, supported effort to put data out there for our citizens to consume based on dialogue with them, based on an
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to interrupt you for a second. That's
Okay.
hard to get too far away, but you use an acronym there that I know maybe not everybody is familiar with, a FOIA request. So you were talking about how this is different than a FOIA request or FOIA process. Can you explain for those folks who maybe aren't as familiar, what is FOIA, what is FOIL, and the Sunshine Laws? What does that
Sure.
mean?
So anybody out there that works for government knows what it is.
Fair point.
Part
Fair
of what we're
point, but we
bombarded
have a
with.
very diverse audience today.
Oh, so basically, it is an open records request for information from government sector, and because most municipalities work so hard at the process around that and making sure that those happen appropriately, we wanted to make sure that they understood that this didn't replace that,
Okay.
and that it was more around data that is kind of locked away in vaults that we have. And if someone wants it, typically they have to make a phone call. We have to create a file. The file has to be sent to them. And because most government leadership is very protective of the fact that they adhere to those processes, we wanted to make sure that they were understanding that we weren't sending a message that we weren't already doing that aspect of open records.
Okay. And you had mentioned in terms of giving it, how do I say this, kind of a process for how you march through. Was there a slide you wanted to share, or was there something you mentioned about how to depict this?
Yes, there is a slide that I'd like to share.
And I'm always kind of amazed, even though we've done quite a few of these, that when the technology works, oh, look at that. I love it. I know it's supposed to work, but when it's actually working, I'm just always
So, I wanted to walk through this slide a bit because it really does give some detail to the process. And I mentioned that it was about a year before we actually had a live portal. But the resolution was adopted in Raleigh in February of 2012, and that really started a lot of the conversation around what it was and why we as a city organization wanted to embark on an open data portal. And then we move forward with educating all aspects of the organization. And I don't want to read through this for you because you can absolutely see that we had some challenges and that we did some beta testing, that we redrafted our open source policies, and it took several months for a lot of that to be vetted with the appropriate individuals. We had conversations along the way with our operating departments on that data that they would like to publish. We found some low-hanging fruit from the standpoint of starting out with data that we knew citizens would be interested in because of our prior history with requests into the organization. Those things like budget data, permitting data. So, it was a good way for us to kind of get off of the ground running with data that we knew would be easily consumed. So we're monitoring a lot of that to see how many citizens or when citizens are actually accessing that information. Then we thought about whether we wanted it to be the City of Raleigh kind of effort or whether or not we were going to try to address things from a multi-jurisdictional perspective. We have an excellent open data manager who spends quite a bit of time in the community, talking to individuals and rallying around the fact that we know even with our web portals that citizens don't typically know exactly what the city of Raleigh manages, or whether the county is managing a certain aspect of things. So anytime we could take the approach to look at it from a multi-jurisdictional perspective, that it would be more appealing to the citizen base.
Well, I want to actually ask a follow-up if I can on the multi-jurisdiction, but before I do so, I'll have to say that one of the reasons why I'm so confident to say that Raleigh is a national leader in open government and citizen experience is just as you mentioned, how you have some local leaders who are not employees of government, right? Or some, maybe there's even some hybrids, but there's an unbelievable level of civic engagement that you have everyday folks, from the technologists to the folks who show up at town hall meetings. You have more people in Raleigh participating in this than just about any other city in America. It's amazing for me every time I go to Raleigh and witness it firsthand, the degree to which you have brought citizens in. And that is why I'm so confident to say that Raleigh is a leader, because I've seen it. You have folks who show up, and these people have families and jobs and other things to do, and they still show up.
On weekends, we've had city camp here, I think 3 years of city camp.
Yeah.
These activities typically happen during the day. People show up, participate. It is a city that historically really has had a very good citizen structure, even in terms of what we call our citizen advisory committees. And there are quite a few individuals that either chair those committees or participate in those committees that are tech savvy and interested in the quality of government, very much interested and engaged in the quality of life here. So it's been a phenomenon for me to see that kind of engagement from our citizens. And then,
well, I think it's a great credit of what the leadership you provided as well. So I'm going to ask one final question, and I'm getting some chat messages on the side for people that are asking some questions already. So for all the participants in this webinar, I'm going to ask one final question. This is a great time for you to fire your questions in. I'm going to ask for some support from Alita and team in the Socrata office to help filter the questions. But I want to provide our last 10 minutes to engage the folks that are participating in this webinar. But my final question goes back to jurisdiction. So you mentioned how Open Raleigh is not just for your city. It sounds like Open Raleigh is providing support for the region. And I'd love to hear a bit more about what that means and how you got there.
So, I mentioned City Camp earlier, and that was an initiative that was started with one of our city council members, Bonner Gaylord. But we also have a local Raleigh Brigade, and that Code for America Brigade is instrumental in partnering with the city. So, if you didn't know that the city was a separate entity, it would be interesting to see if other cities could engage their brigade the way that we have. So we have the Raleigh Brigade, but we also have Durham and Cary, and we've been able to partner and work together with the brigade to rally around the citizen engagement piece. So with those regional partners, we've been able to help to grow the whole interest in the open data portal, and even our discussions around open source and our partnerships with other companies here in Raleigh. It kind of has been a community for us. And then the other commitment that we make as a city organization is to expose our youth. So we've had city camp initiatives where we've brought the youth in and had them to participate. So we begin to grow that next generation of active citizens. So it has been greatly beneficial for us to have those close relationships.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Okay, so with that, we're going to start turning it over to the participant questions. And I'm getting a few on the chat box here. So the first one, who should be the lead on projects like this? Is it always, I think it's IT, so Information Technology Services is an acronym in the question, but who should be the lead on projects like this?
I think that would vary by organization. I think that IT has to be a part of this kind of effort, but I think that in some jurisdictions where there's a stronger mayoral form of government, it may be the mayor's office. And some organizations where there's a city manager, it may come out of the city manager's office. I don't know that it matters as much as the whole ideal and strategy around citizen engagement matters. And then I would also add that I think what has worked here in Raleigh is that we consider the IT organization considers itself a community organization. Thus my title. Basically, I think that the rallying and the interface with the public has to happen. So the IT organization or whomever spearheads this kind of organization kind of has to rally around that.
Yeah, and it's an interesting question. If I can also offer a brief reflection, I have the privilege of working with a number of chief data officers and chief information officers around the world. And it's interesting to see how many of them have as their core focus looking inward, and how sometimes there's a person whose core focus is to look outward and engage the people. I mean, the concept of a citizen engagement is obviously not new. It's as old, perhaps, as the first elected official. But I think where technology helps is in the scale, in the ease, in the scope, in the outreach. There's a way in which this tends to go into the technology services departments because there's just new tools. It's just easier to engage more people where they're living their lives. It's, the classic example is, if you have a town hall, how many people are free at 11 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday? Versus, to your point, being able to, have that self-service information. What was your example? 10 p.m. in the airport. I mean, that is a technology enabler, and so I think that's why it tends to fall into that department. Is that a fair reflection from your experience?
It is, Ian, and I think the bigger picture perspective for all of us is opening that door to government, and government being an enabler for the community, and looking at it from that perspective. We're really taking the lid off of government and beginning to share information and be available to our citizenry.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, we're running. Actually, I got too carried away with that question, so I need to leave some room for some other questions here. So I'm going to jump into another one. What are your goals in Raleigh for 2014? What's in store for the year ahead?
Oh, we've got a lot going on here. Kind of never ending. Yeah. So from the community perspective, from aligning with the whole ideal of the quality of life in Raleigh, we plan to move forward with our municipal open data portal across jurisdictions. And when I say that, I mean jurisdictions, and I also mean across government entities as well. So the more we can share with the state of North Carolina, the more that we can share with other entities and maybe even some private sector entities. So our strategies really are to step back and adopt some strategic values that we would like going forward, and then to continue around our Open Raleigh focus to not only provide data, but to also work on open access across the region.
Excellent, excellent. I'm going to keep charging through these questions. We have a follow-up. What are the resources required to maintain Open Raleigh? So I don't know if resources means budget or people, but can you provide a sense of scale of what it takes to administer a program like Open Raleigh?
So we gave a lot of thought to that, and of course we started this at a time when resources were scarce, and we had to figure out how we were going to embark on this important initiative without being able to go to our political body and ask for a lot of dollars. I would say when people ask me about using Socrata, that it was a good way for us to bring this up quickly, to save time, because we didn't have a large group of developers within the organization to embark on it. The one thing that I did insist on was that we put our money where our mouth was, and we took a open position and hired a open data expert to come in and kind of lead us down the path that we needed to be on. And then we reskilled several individuals who were on staff to work with the tools, and that worked pretty well for us. I think that it was a good transition from some of the experiences that the individuals had in the past with traditional systems to the open data platform. So we've been highly successful. I would not say that we've added any positions at all.
Interesting. Excellent. Excellent. Here's a potentially sensitive one. What is the best way to resolve the realities of city politics with what you've done as a good citizen experience? Where does the city politics come in?
I love these kind of questions because it's the reality of, as many of you know, it's the reality of what we do on a day-to-day basis. So as far as the politics go, I think that you have to really do due diligence on the educational side on what it is and the benefits. And we have a tendency to talk more about the technology perspective of things and kind of overshadow the benefits to the citizens. So I think having conversations with the political body and the community as a whole around how it benefits the citizenry, how it helps to improve the quality of life, that people feel better when they have access to information as it relates to government. They trust more. And I think that you have to spend some time on the touchy-feely aspect of things that people typically don't like to talk about. And those of us that are technologists know that we kind of have to push ourselves into that realm of discussion.
Right. Okay, I think this is going to be the last question before we sign off here, out of respect for the half-hour webinar schedule. What is a common mistake the city makes when engaging with citizens?
Thinking they know what they want.
That the city knows what they want, or that the people know what they want?
Thinking that the city knows what citizens want.
Okay.
I think there has to be a channel of a sit-down dialogue where citizens talk about what's important to them. And I think that we learn a lot. When we engage with citizens, we will find that it is not necessarily what we thought coming out of the gate, that they have interest in areas and that they want data and information that we never thought that they would want. There is, of course, some low-hanging fruit there, and I mentioned that earlier, but
right.
I think engaging and having dialogue, good old conversation.
Excellent. Well, that's about all the time we have. Gail, thank you so much for your perspectives on what it takes to create a great citizen experience. For all the participants, thank you so much for participating. We've had the pleasure of listening to Gail Roper, the Chief Information and Community Relations Officer for Raleigh, North Carolina. Again, my name is Ian Kalin. I'm Director of Open Data for Socrata. We thank you all very much for participating in this webinar. We'll have a short survey asking for your feedback about this presentation that you'll receive by email. We very much look forward to you all participating in our next session. So thank you all so very much.
Thank you.